Remember Jeffrey Epstein, the multimillionaire tycoon addicted to sex with underage girls? He was all over the news 3 months ago, and then suddenly he wasn't. Well, it appears the wheels of justice are starting to turn, although slowly. Let's begin with a recap of the events prior to Epstein's long delayed arrest by the FBI NYPD Crimes Against Children Task Force this past July. A year-long investigation in 2005 by Palm Beach County Chief of Police Michael Reiter confirmed an elaborate sex trafficking operation at Epstein's Palm Beach mansion. It was well organized and extensive enough to leave a Bill Clinton or a Harvey Weinstein gaping in disbelief. The state attorney for Palm Beach County, Barry Kersher, was reluctant, however, to act on the evidence. Reiter took it up the ladder. But the federal U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Florida, Alexander Acosta, was equally unenthusiastic. He had to do something, though, and Epstein's legal team flew down to Palm Beach to help him decide what that might be. Putting their heads together, they hit upon charging Epstein with the lesser crime of soliciting prostitutes, although the actual crime was sex trafficking of underage girls, who were now to be treated as if they were prostitutes. The idea clicked, and Epstein was convicted in 2000 counts of soliciting. He served 13 months of an 18-month sentence with work release privileges. His days were passed in his office, and he reported back to the prison in the evening to catch some Z's. He finished the sentence under house arrest with travel privileges. His victims received no justice, and more victims suffered as a result. It took over a decade, but ongoing pressure to reopen the case led, finally, to his second arrest at New Jersey's Teterboro Airport, which had served as his distribution hub. Some combinations of events are so rare as to be almost unheard of. For example, the last time the planets aligned was 561 BC. The next time will be over 800 years from now in 2854. Amazingly, however, such an alignment occurred this past August 10th at the Federal Manhattan Correctional Center. Epstein had previously tried to kill himself, but was taken off suicide watch. The surveillance cameras mysteriously malfunctioned that night or weren't being monitored, and the guards failed to make their usual rounds. Damn! And only the day before, his cellmate had been removed. Epstein conveniently committed suicide, or so the coroner's office said, even though the injuries to his neck, according to some outside experts, were more consistent with deliberate strangulation. It couldn't have been more perfectly arranged if by divine providence. The prisoner's subsequent inability to face the sex trafficking charges against him, owing to his being dead, prompted the judge, Richard Berman, to issue a notice that the court would not pursue the case. No point in wheeling in the corpse from the city morgue for a show trial. So Epstein skated, post-mortem, over and done, leaving us with three questions. 1. Will the powerful people whose names will likely come up in the course of civil trials also skate? 2. Will there be justice for his victims? 3. Will the circumstances of his death be definitively investigated? In regard to the first question, Epstein was a high-end pimp with a carriage trade clientele. He procured underage girls for guests who shared his taste for forbidden fruit, but didn't charge for his services. Power over the guest was reward enough. His procuring of minors to be enjoyed in opulent surroundings put him in a position, should the need arise, to extort money or favors, if the guest would rather his illicit sexual activities not be exposed to public scrutiny. This is a man, after all, who described his beautiful blonde pilot, Nada Marcinkova, as a sex slave he purchased. Such was his mindset. The difference between Marcinkova and those he invited to his soirees to enjoy a bit of nubile nookie was one of degree. Once the guests were in his little black book and his photo and video collections, they too were in his power. When detailed evidence of the crimes he and they committed is revealed, many well-known names are likely to be before the court of public opinion, if not a court of law. Time will tell whether one or both will happen. So the first question can't be answered definitively. Let's address the second, which is whether his victims will receive compensation for the damage to their lives. The news on that front is more encouraging. Civil suits are now proceeding. Quote, I'm calling for the administrators of Jeffrey Epstein's estate to freeze all his assets, unquote, tweeted Lisa Bloom, who represents 5 accusers, and to hold them for victims who are filing civil cases, unquote. Additional claims are likely against persons who partook of illicit sex on Epstein's premises or who aided him in his trafficking operations, such as the now nowhere to be found Ghislaine Maxwell. U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, Jeffrey Berman, wrote in a letter to the judge, this office remains committed to doing its utmost to stand up for the victims who have already come forward, as well as for the many others who have yet to do so, unquote. Publicly, he declared that they may expect justice. Our investigation of the conduct charged in the indictment, which included a conspiracy count, remains ongoing, unquote. Lastly, we come to the question of whether the preposterous circumstances under which Jeffrey Epstein died while in custody at a federal detention facility will be seriously investigated. Attorney General William Barr said he was appalled at the Metropolitan Correctional Center's inability to secure this prisoner, unquote. In a recent tweet just this week, he described it as, quote, a perfect storm of screw-ups, and went on to say there is good progress being made, and I'm hopeful in a relatively short time there will be tangible results, unquote. The 2 prison guards who failed to make their rounds the night of Epstein's death have been charged with negligence and falsifying logbooks. Previously, Mr. Barr removed the prison warden and the acting Bureau of Prisons director, Hugh Hurwitz, from their positions. They weren't fired, but transferred. Our Attorney General has a lot of matters to keep him busy, but he evidently means to pursue this one to a close. Meanwhile, the case remains unresolved. While we await developments, here's a question for us to close with. Isn't it time we saw an end to the rich and powerful, in cahoots with the institutions of our government, doing whatever they please and getting away with it, while the rest of us are made to feel foolish for abiding by the law and teaching our children they should too? Thanks for watching. Be sure to click like and subscribe to support the channel, and let me hear from you with your thoughts and ideas. We'll see you back here next time.